All right, welcome everybody. We're gonna, real quick, just good to get back out there. Obviously, it's been 3.5 months since we were able to do anything with our guys. The strength coaches had a great summer with them, and just was excited to be able to start talking football with them again. So had a good long meeting this morning, and then another meeting this afternoon. Got out there and ran around a little bit, and first look at all the freshmen, and it's non-padded. It's not real football, but we're able to get started. So from there, I'll take some questions.
What did you talk to him about? Did you talk about expectations for this year? I mean, what was the message you had before the first practice?
Well, we talked about expectations yesterday. We had a bunch of administrative meetings and compliance meetings and team meeting where we went over a bunch of rules and regulations, and we addressed expectations, and we basically told them that we were going to ignore expectations just like we did last year going into the Clemson game. We didn't really care what you guys wrote or what the media was saying on TV or what the expectations were of that game, so we weren't going to pay attention to that. So it's the same thing now. Expectations are high, which we like, but we're not going to pay any attention to it. How you handle expectations is just doing your job. Talk to them about just focusing hard on making yourselves better and all three sides of the ball better, and worried about doing whatever we got to do from a team building chemistry standpoint to get that as good as we can. That's how you handle expectations.
Speaking of expectations, you were number 11 in the coaches poll today. What do the polls mean to you, especially preseason polls, especially one by coaches?
Well, it's important to be in the top 20. I mean, the top 20 teams get more recognition, so it's good to be there. We're happy about being there. Are we going to throw a party about it? Probably not. Are we going to talk about it? Probably not. So it's again, it's it's an honor to be there, and it's good. It's good for the program, and it's good publicity, and we're fired up about it. But it's not going to change anything we do, and we're not going to talk about it, and we're not going to change what the routine is or how we practice or any of that.
Dean, I think 4 true freshman signees aren't here. Do you expect any change with that? I mean, them to be able to make it in, or probably not?
They're going to a prep school. McManus is going to a prep school. D. Joyner was, I'm not quite sure where he's going. Bernie's still, he's still trying. That's still in the NCAA. So the rest of them are here and healthy and ready to go.
What did you see out of the guys who missed spring with injuries and finally getting them back out there?
I was excited to see him out there. Terrence looked like Terrence. He looks good and was moving around pretty good. Dustin, looked good. Juwan Snow was, he's a shoulder thing, so his thing is going to be pop with his pads. But he was moving around, and it was good to see him out there. Pat Miller's back, ready to go. Who else was hurt? Can you remember?
McCartney missed some time in spring.
Yeah, he's usually missing time, but he's out there doing fine. We had a meeting at 2, and we start every meeting at 2 with Dave Kearns giving us an update on healthy, healthy, not healthy, practicing, not practicing, and all that. And he had 0 people on his list, so it's what it should be coming the first practice. I'm sure it'll change, but that's part of it.
Dana, compared to last year, you've got like 100 quarterbacks out there. So how much does that help you? And are you just tired of throwing the football, you and Shannon?
Yeah. Well, Shannon can't throw. Jake's better than him. Hey, we got 5 arms, which helps. A lot of those drills that we do requires 5 guys throwing it. It alleviates some of the, just the every down throwing that Gino and Paul do. So it's long term, it should really help us because we can get better from a drill standpoint and not wear out Gino's arm, not wear out Paul's arm. So having 5 guys is definitely what we're shooting for.
Not to put somebody else's, I'd like to ask him, but a kid who starts at a D2 school for 2 years and then suddenly walks on here. Is there a rhyme or a reason to that?
Well, yeah, he thinks he can play here. So, I mean, he wouldn't have transferred here just to quit playing football. I don't know anything about him yet. Today's the first day I saw him. There's a few, there's a handful of new guys. I don't quite know who they are yet. But yeah, when he called and wanted to talk to Jake about coming up here, Jake asked him why, and he said, "Well, I think I could play there." So time will tell.
How much of today is just teaching the newcomers how to practice and how to, go through the initial stuff?
Yeah, there's 25 to 30 new guys out there, so they got to look up to the older guys and just follow them. I mean, it's obviously part of the transition, but because you get all these kids in here during the summer, with the way it used to be 10 years ago, you had 3 practices with the freshmen, and that's when you taught them. But because now we can bring them in over the summer and they can be on scholarship, they've been out there throwing and catching, and going through the process, so it eases that transition. So we didn't practice any differently, we didn't practice any slower. Those guys just got to catch up and they got to keep up.
Last year you came in and had to teach offense. This year is a defense. Is it comparable, and how difficult is it what they're going to be going through on defense?
Well, it's the schemes that we put in place defensively and special teams wise are much like it is for us offensively. It's not that hard to pick up. I'm not saying it's easy to get good at any of that, but it's easy to pick up. So with that said, and the reason it is because the schemes, the conference that we're going to is going to require us to play more people. It's going to require us to play more people on defense. It's going to require us to play more people on special teams, which, what do you mean by more people? It obviously means getting the freshmen involved in it. So, it's going to be a work in progress. There's no question, but those guys look pretty good to me. They didn't bust many things today. It's a work in progress for us offensively still, too.
Do you see more freshmen this year who you feel like are going to be able to make that jump quicker than maybe last year's class?
Yeah, I think so. The hardest one's obviously offensive line. But other than the offensive line, we wouldn't be opposed to playing every one of the other guys.
And assuming your 4 freshmen don't make it, do you know your scholarship number? It was low last year. It sounds like you have more guys, but do you know where it is?
Yeah, I think we're at 79 or 80.
So it would be 83 of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's our guys are still in school, so they still got another week of school. So there's a couple of guys that need to finish strong from an academic standpoint. That could happen from. But if we retained all our guys and we signed all our guys, then we'd be in much better shape than we were last year. I'm not prepared to say that yet, because 3 or 4 guys not going to make it, and then a handful of guys that are still taking classes. Let's hope we hang on around 80 guys. Hopefully next year we can get that up to 85. It's the goal. We didn't achieve it. We tried, but we're not there yet.
Did anybody really impress you today? Anybody that you saw for the first time, even just out there, no pads, and could tell they worked this summer?
Not really. I mean, not one without watching the film, and 2 without pads. It's too early to tell.
Do you evaluate the way that Josh Jenkins played coming back from that injury?
Who's that?
Josh Jenkins.
He went through all spring, so he got through 15 practices in spring, and has had a good summer. Looks good. Looks the same as he did in spring.
What's the biggest difference coaching this first week as opposed to last first week, where you were instilling the offense in 3 days and then just repeating it? What do you do differently this year now that you have a year under your belt?
It should be a little easier. Year 2 is always a little easier, but we're still going to do the same thing. We're still going to watch what's going on and then make corrections. I mean, there's guys out there that are seniors that have been playing a whole lot of football that we're still going to correct things from a technique standpoint. That's just coaching. That never goes away, whether it's teaching them what to do, or whether it's trying to get them fundamentally a little bit better, or technique a little bit better or ripping them because of effort. That's what coaching is. So guys that are experienced, that doesn't mean that we're going to quit doing that.
I saw Tavon working with Traverse Copeland and punt returns and things like that. Are you seeing a lot of your older guys, with 9 returning guys on, not returning starters on offense? Is that something that's really helpful early on for them to work with those freshmen and get them up to speed?
Yeah, it's incredibly important during the summer when we're not here. You know, and having more older guys that know what's going on definitely gets them to where first practice they know what's going on a little bit better. But that's obviously those guys are have kind of been there and done that, and those younger kids look up to them, and if they can coach them, they're probably going to listen to those guys more than they're going to listen to some of the coaches at times.
When do you focus on Marshall? When do you start paying attention to them and getting ready for them?
Oh, I mean, usually game week, because of camp, we usually started about, I don't know, a week and a half probably before. But it's a game week more than anything. We won't talk about it for a while.
And you talk about the offense being easier the second year. Is it easier for the head coach who is, had to learn things himself last year too? And what did you take out of last year's camp that's making this year's camp will make this year's camp easier?
Well, we were happy with the structure of things last year, the schedule and how we did things, and we didn't change a whole lot. I had some notes on a few different things that we wanted to change, but had a pretty good plan of how we wanted to do camp last year, how we wanted to approach the season, and all that. So we really didn't change too many things from what we did last year from a schedule standpoint and structure standpoint. That's all pretty much the same.
Before last year, did you go to some coaches or did you know, what you wanted to do before you did that?
Yeah, I've coached before.
Yeah, never did it all yourself before.
Well, I was heavily involved in my 2 years at Houston and the 1 year at Oklahoma State. I was heavily involved in how we practiced and how we did camp. So, I had a pretty good idea of what we wanted to do. So we haven't changed a whole bunch from last year to this year. There's a little bit more of a comfort level, obviously. That's just like anything else.
Along those lines, you bragged a bunch about how good December was last year for you. Can you make this August, December? Like, is there anything you can replicate, or is that just perfect storm?
Yeah, that's the goal. You have about 15 practices in December. You have 15 practices in spring, and we have about 15 practices prior to getting ready for a game. So yes, that's kind of how we approach it. We want to make as much progress. We made as much progress in the spring as we did in December. And so the goal of camp is to make as much progress in camp heading into a game week than we did last spring and last December. You're playing with the full team now too. December you had a bunch of seniors that you lost, and then spring you're minus 25, and then here you're gaining 25. So we obviously got a long ways to go with some of these guys, but that's the goal. That's why we don't talk about playing games right now. We're just trying to worry about ourselves to get better, and then once we get closer to the game, we'll start worrying about the game.
With Dustin, were you able to tell today and say to yourself, okay, he's back, or at what point will you be able to do that? Is it with pads and contact, or were you able to do that today?
He looked like he was cutting pretty good out there, but it's the hitting that people got to get over it. So not only him, but the rest of those guys that were injured. You don't know if they're fully back until you start popping.
Happy with how today went? In terms of effort, in terms of guys coming right back and getting into it?
Sure. It's not real football though, right? We need to get some pads on. You guys are wanting to hear a little bit more, but we got another day of non-pads. We'll have a first day of pads, and then we'll have a Sunday where we regroup, and then we'll get out there again on Monday, and that'll be 4 practices, 2 padded, so I'll probably have some more information for you. Cool? All right. We'll see you guys.